This is Street Knowledge with Chris Graham.
Welcome to the podcast, Chris Graham, and it's Friday, which means my co-host today is Jerry Carter, and we talk any and all things ACC. And Jerry, we got to talk first about the big game of the week. Still reverberations a few days back now. Virginia Tech and Duke, both teams a little diminished with star players out, and Virginia Tech getting a huge home win, first really significant win without Justin Robinson in the lineup for the Hokies. Of course, the Hokies beat Duke without Zion Williamson. We don't know about his status, heading into the, this weekend, rest of the regular season. But big win for Virginia Tech, and it knocks Duke right now at least out of that three-way tie for first. They're now in third place. But your thoughts about that game? We got to watch that game. We were texting each other. Huge win for Tech, and really, nice boost for them heading into March.
It really was, and again, thanks to my work with you, I got to hang out with Buzz for part of an afternoon. And unlike most fans, where if you like School A, you got to hate School B, I really am a fan of what Buzz gets done down there. I like the way that he does it. Again, as you've noted before, it's disappointing that the way that the Castle lost, if it's Carolina, Duke, or Tech, playing against U1, or if they're playing Virginia. But it was a great game. I know you and I both thought they had a game plan in place. And I'm curious to see if you noticed the same thing I noticed. Because what I saw Virginia Tech do in the first half, now of course, Zion wasn't playing, and Eric was ill. But what Virginia Tech did, Chris, that I saw, was Buzz said, listen, we want Trey Jones to shoot. We're not even going to guard him. And let Jack White shoot until he makes a shot. And it was so sad during the game. The announcers actually said at one point, we don't have a rooting interest in this game. But Jack White's over his last 29. We'd kind of like to see him make one. And earlier in the season, and especially the one that really sticks out is the Gonzaga game in the second half, Trey Jones had the ability to score when his team needed points. He really did. Whether it was going to the drive or whether it was a floater and sometimes a three. But that's what I saw. It was a situation. Now, Reddish, I thought, played a lights-out first half. Thankfully, if he was picking up some of their slack. Reddish, I think, only missed one shot in the first half. But Jack White and Trey Jones, I saw them left unattended, saying, go ahead and shoot the ball. And they did. And sadly, it didn't work out well for either one of them. And I'm not sure where Jones is concerned. Chris, that's 2 or 3 games in a row now that I feel like he has really struggled offensively. Still out there doing his job on defense. He's still doing a great job, on that end of the court. But he looks lost offensively, and that's what I saw from watching that game. Kudos to Buzz and his group, and this is how much Virginia Tech wants to beat Duke. In the post-game interview, when they're talking about, and I think it's an ACC scheduling thing, where they have them play Duke on the same day, calendar day of the year each time. And they're sitting there, and this is Buzz, this is why I like Buzz. They're asking Buzz a question about, hey, what is it like to beat them 3 times on this same day? And Buzz goes basically, we would have beaten them a 4th time, and he goes through the motions and tells the story about a foul call that wasn't made on a game that was played 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there and you're listening to that going, wow, he had that one ready to go. But that's what I took away from it was, I don't know what they did to Barrett at halftime, but obviously he came out with feeling better, looked more like himself, and scored 17 points. But Virginia Tech had energy, and my thought process was, they said, we're going to pack the inside, we're going to let those guys try to beat us from the outside, and it just didn't work.
Yeah, I'm impressed that Tech was able to maintain the lead throughout the game with. because, Barrett in the first half, he had 4 points. His first field goal was right there at the buzzer, basically, a second before the end of the first half. He had 2 free throws not too long before that. He had 17 second half, and in spite of him beating that Tech game plan, the Hokies were able to maintain the lead. I was impressed with how, because Duke is Duke. They're going to make a run, and Duke made a couple of runs. A 7-0 run, starting with that 3. I think it was Reddish hit a 3 about the 3:15 mark when they were down 7 off an offensive rebound. And then a timeout right afterwards, and I'm watching the game. I'm thinking, well, here's where it starts. Duke is going to do sort of what they did to Syracuse at the end of the game over the weekend. A 10-point win for Duke in a game that was much closer until that final minute and a half, 2 minutes or so. But the Hokies answered, and it's so impressive for Virginia Tech to answer that 7-0 Duke run that tied the game up in the final 2 minutes. The Trey Jones is a guy. You have to do something. You've got to get the ball out of the hands of Barrett somehow. And without Williamson being part of the mix, Jones is shooting 24.6% from 3-point range this year. That's the percentages say you let him shoot the 3. I mean, you want to close out. I'm not sure they closed out a lot. He just kind of missed some open threes, and then he didn't have confidence after missing a couple of those open shots. And he was really a liability out there offensively, and that takes away his value. He is what he is defensively, but if he's out there not pulling the trigger on shots, you got to shoot confidently, whether you make them or not. You got to have the confidence to take the open shot. They'll eventually go in. You mentioned the White thing. He's 0 for his last 29. He's still got a better percentage from 3 than Trey Jones does, and that's amazing. Which tells you early in the season he was shooting lights out. And so when White's missing, I was surprised that Alex O'Connell didn't play a bigger role in that game. He had a really big game at Syracuse. I think he had 5 threes in that game. I'm surprised that he didn't get more minutes and maybe more touches, I guess, against Tech. But I'll give the credit to Tech for this one. Yes, Jones missed some shots. Barrett, didn't have a great first half, had a stellar second half. But I like what Buzz does too. And most of our podcasts we do here are UVA-centric podcasts, and so it's sort of I'm not supposed to say I like, just like you said, Jerry. You're not supposed to like other people, but I love what Buzz Williams has done at Virginia Tech, and defensively, great game plan, and he doesn't have a deep team this year. It's even less depth with Justin Robinson being on the sidelines for the last 8 games. But he gets a lot out of the components he has left. Obviously, Alexander Nikhil Walker is going to be an NBA lottery pick after this year, after his sophomore year. Likely he's going to leave for the draft, and he'll be a top 10 pick. Terry Blackshear has really impressed of late. He had another solid game against Duke. Blackshear probably not an NBA prospect, but at 6'10", he can hit the 3. He can dribble drive just enough when a guy's trying to close out on his threes, and he did that a couple times against Duke Tuesday night, and so I love what he gets out of his group. Ty Outlaw's there for his 6th year, and he's having a couple of medical issues during his career, but he's having a really solid senior season, and I like this group. I mean, this is a team now for Virginia Tech. What that win means, as far as I thought for Tech, they were 4-3 going into that game with Duke. 4-3 without Robinson, and I think they were 18-3 with Robinson. So they were a top 10 team with Justin Robinson. But 4-3, they sort of had won the games they were supposed to win. They lost the games they were supposed to lose. And so, without knowing what his status is heading into these last couple weeks and then into Selection Sunday, you had to wonder, is that going to impact possible seeding for them and where they play and who they play and that kind of thing in the NCAA tournament? Because again, they're beating the teams they're supposed to beat. They're losing the teams they're supposed to lose to. And then you beat Duke. And yes, Duke's without Williamson, but Tech's without Robinson. He's their best player. And so now they have a win that tells the rest of the country, hey, this is a pretty good group without Justin Robinson, but also some confidence internally. Wow, we can beat Duke. They still had Barrett. They still have Reddish. They're still top 5 picks in the draft next year, and we were able to beat them. Barrett having 21 points, Reddish having a good game. So that's a huge win for Virginia Tech. I think going down the stretch here, and whether Robinson's back or not, I think that signals to the rest of the country, better watch out for this Virginia Tech team.
Yeah, Blanchard has taken his game to a whole nother level. And it was funny because, the Buzz beating Buzz is what I'll go with. It's just a situation where somebody's asking him, hey, do you think this guy is the best big man in the conference? And Buzz very politely said, I think he might be the best big man in the country. And he's playing at a whole other level right now. I want to throw a couple numbers at you from the game. The first one, and Mark Bolding doesn't get the love that he should get it sometimes, but here you go. From the field, he's 4 or 5. From the line, he's 6 of 6. So the guy missed one shot the entire night. I got to ask why he only took 5 shots. And you mentioned Trey Jones is struggling from 3. Chris, he was 3 for 9 from the field. And 3 of those were his normal little, I'm going to get just inside the free throw line, and I'm going to shoot a floater. And they missed. It was a situation to where it's one thing to know, hey, I'm not going to shoot the free real well, but the dribble and drive that he had earlier in the year, the ability to get to the rim, it's not there right now. I don't know. Part of it is the amount of minutes he's playing. Part of it is it's a confidence thing. And it brings back in the thing with Jones and with the guards last year, brings back to the same question that I have, and backing up, when Saturday Night Live first came out, the original group was called the Not Ready for Primetime Players. There are a lot of people who come into college, play their 1 year, and they're not going to stay in school, whether or not they're going to be able to play at the next level in a major way or not. Now, Jones' older brother did come in as a freshman. He did help them win a national championship. And I was sitting here thinking, Jones might come back. He might play another year and improve his stock in the draft. And he didn't. And he's now playing on a regular basis in the NBA. Okay, but it wasn't an overnight thing. There was a question on whether he was going to get drafted and win, and how that was going to play out. When you're 6 feet tall or in that range, it's just not the same given at the next level. Now, am I expecting Jones to leave at the end of the year? I am. I think that's the mindset, but I just don't know that you can go to the NBA without a comfortable shot and play on a regular basis. I'm not sure. So, again, but he's just one. He's just one player from 2. But you look at the draft, there's 60 spots in the draft.
Yeah.
There was something like 212 people apply for the draft out of college life. And I have no idea what that's about other than somebody goes, okay, I went to college. I really don't have an interest in going to college. Long term, I'm just going to declare for the draft and see what happens. But where Jones is concerned, I'm a little worried the same way with regard last year, where Dick Sparks was concerned. You knew that Bagley was going to go, and you knew the other big Carter was going to go. Of course, and Grayson was a senior, but both the guards, one ended up going undrafted, and one went in the second round. And you and I have had the conversation about the difference between being a first-round draft pick and a second-round draft pick.
Yeah, I worry about Jones in that respect too. He doesn't have the jump shot. He's not, and those kind of things can be worked on certainly when you're a professional, and getting ready for the draft. And then when you're a professional, obviously that's your job, so you better be hoisting jumper after jumper and that kind of thing every day. But at this stage, you're being looked at as a commodity, and his commodity right now doesn't include consistent offense. The defense is there, but NBA teams don't draft, especially first-round picks, based on their defensive abilities. That's something that's an additional kind of thing. Like, for example, when you talk about DeAndre Hunter at UVA, DeAndre Hunter enhances his stock because of what he can do defensively. He can guard small point guards. He can guard power forwards. He can guard anybody from 1 to 4. And so that makes him that much more valuable because he's such a deadly offensive weapon, both on dribble drives, mid-range, and in three-point shooting. But if you don't have the offensive game, you're not getting drafted as a defensive player by today's NBA teams. They expect you to play defense, and they expect you to play offense. I mean, they expect, they kind of expect both things there. So I would worry about Jones in that respect, and I would worry too. We've talked about that, and it probably bears repeating for people who don't listen to the podcast regularly. If you're a first-round pick, guaranteed contract, 5 years, you're making money. If you're a second-round pick, there's nothing guaranteed. You've got to make a team. You got nothing. All you do is have a team that says you're showing up at our camp in October. That's all that means when you're a second-round pick. I would definitely worry about that in Jones' respect, and certainly think that he could benefit from another year or two even at the college level. He's a good college guard, and certainly can get better with more tutelage from not just Coach K, but that staff there, John Shire and that staff there at Duke. He can certainly get a lot better under their wings. But if he's only there for 1 year, I definitely would worry about him, kind of falling through the cracks and probably not being an NBA player next year, and kind of seeing where he goes from there. Man, that's maybe not the worst thing. If he doesn't want to be a college player, he'll make money somewhere. There's a lot of guys. We get so caught up on NBA. There's a lot of opportunities to make money playing basketball. There's the European leagues. There's lots of opportunities there. Chance to make money and see the world. Australia has some really competitive leagues now. Devin Hall, former UVA player, was second-round pick last year of Oklahoma City. Ended up deciding to go to Australia for a year instead of playing. He was offered a split contract, an NBA G League contract, where he would have kind of gone back and forth based on Oklahoma City's needs. He decided it was better for him to go to Australia for a year and come back next year and maybe have a chance at the NBA. So there's lots of opportunities to make money that don't involve just the NBA. But, we're also focused on the NBA that we kind of think of if you leave school early and you don't go to the NBA, you made a mistake. And I think if that's the judgment there for Trey Jones, I'm not sure the NBA is in his immediate future. It's probably in his long-term future, but I'm not sure if it's something next year for him necessarily.
But like I said, it'll be interesting to see, because after that group, with Winslow and Okafor, and of course Grayson and Trey Jones were freshmen as well. After they won the national championship, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, well, that is the one of the 5 that Duke's won that was an actual one-and-done championship. And Jones went, and I was kind of puzzled by it. I'm going, okay, well, clearly that's what he wants to do. And I followed every NBA player that played for Duke, Virginia, or UW on my apps. And you're seeing, I get an update every so often. Jones is doing this, Jones is doing that, and he's now he's now trying to found a hole. Chris in the NBA, but he's 4 years in, and I don't have any. You look at the comparison where UVA is concerned. Could the big 3 all go this year? Sure, they could. Am I going to be bummed if they do? Absolutely. I'm absolutely going to be bummed. I like watching them play basketball. I like watching Jerome. I like watching Kyle Guy. DeAndre Hunter in the Louisville game took his game to another level. We always know he's been capable of doing that. But again, I'm a college basketball fan, so I want everybody to stay in college. And that's what's fun about it is they're still playing for the name on the jersey. It's not the shoe contract. It's not the home in Beverly Hills. It's not the $30 million. It's fun for me because there's still a certain amount of pride, if you will, in that. And I look at the number of athletes that really are student athletes. A great example that you could add to is the career blogging. I mean, if you can't feel good about what blogging accomplished at UVA, and now it's doing rather well at the next level, I'm just, again, but that's me being a college basketball fan, and that's the reason I'm a college basketball fan versus an NBA fan.
Yeah, and
My money is it changes the game to a point where it's just not as fun for me.
And Brogdon and Joe Harris, both second-round picks, but they both used their eligibility up at UVA as well. So Justin Anderson, conversely, he left school early. He was a first-round pick, but of the three from that group, he's a distant third. Joe Harris, the NBA three-point champion this year. Brogdon is a starter, maybe the second-best player on the best team in the NBA, the Milwaukee Bucks, at least as of right now, record-wise. The Milwaukee Bucks, best team in the NBA. So Brogdon and Harris have forged interesting careers as second-round picks. And, so it's not that being a second-round pick, sentences you to a lifetime of traveling the earth trying to find a place to play basketball. You have a chance, at least, to make a team. But in Joe Harris's case, Joe got cut by Cleveland. He got traded He got traded by Cleveland and then cut by, I think it was Orlando, maybe, that he got traded to, and it was just a move to trade his contract. Orlando cut him right away. He was without a job. The Nets picked him up completely off the scrap heap, thinking that he would be a roster guy, but not even a rotation guy. And now he's a starter in the NBA three-point champion. And he signed a 2-year, $16 million contract after earning his keep. But it's an interesting road for those guys if they go that route. And I was just looking at as we were talking, I looked at a couple of mock drafts, and it's interesting to see. I keep hearing about Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Virginia Tech. He's a sophomore, as a lottery pick, and then both the mock drafts I had him in the second round. I'll tell you what, if you're a second round pick on a mock draft, you're not leaving school. Ty Jerome, also a second-round pick in both the mock drafts I just looked at. Not necessarily representative of what everybody thinks, but if you're a second-round pick, you're not leaving school early. At least that's my opinion, especially guys at schools like Tech and UVA. So likely we'll see those guys for at least another year. DeAndre Hunter, though, is a consensus. He's top. He's not Williamson or Barrett, but he's a top 5, top 6, 7 pick for everybody that I'm seeing. So. And I don't mind talking about that side of things. Not a lot of guys play in the NBA. It is fun when you get to see those guys, make that jump to the next level. And then even the guys who play in the next level. Jerry, while you were talking earlier, I looked up some other guys that I really like, Duke players of recent vintage. Grayson Allen was one of them. I thought on that group, the group in 2015 that won the national title, I really liked Allen. And he, of course, had a big Final Four for that team, even though he didn't have a big season all season long that year. And Allen he's played 30 games. He's averaging 3 points a game. Luke Kennard's another guy that I really like there. He's averaging 8 points a game in his second season in the NBA. So, it could take a while to get yourself ready. Not everybody goes and becomes a big star. Now, we're expecting Williamson and Baird at least to be big stars in the NBA. But you even look at that group from that 2015 group. Okafor has kind of bounced around. Justice Winslow is kind of still trying to find his place. Not star level. He's playing well, but he's not a star. And so, we put so much stock into who the stars are that we forget about the other guys. But there's jobs for all those guys out there, and they're all trying to make a living at it. And that's fun, but projecting it is hard, and that's what is so. Maybe that's what one of the fun things about college basketball is. You're watching so many things at once. You're watching the games. You're rooting for your teams. You're trying to say, I wonder if this guy will be a star at the next level. Will he play at the next level? Will he play in Europe? Will he play anymore? Will he be a coach? It's all potential there, and I don't think it's the worst thing, but it can get a little grating when it's all about who the next megastar is going to be, and it can get to be a little bit much in that sense.
So it's kind of interesting because you mentioned Grayson, for example, is a situation. There is one NBA team I follow game by game, and again, the tie is going back to Duke. The Utah Jazz is coached by Quinn Snyder. Not only is he a Duke grad, he's also from Seattle out here. And the big dream out here is that if and when Seattle ever gets the team back, that Quinn would leave Utah and come up here and coach it, come home. But the roster that Utah has is as deep as a roster that there is in the NBA. And they're quietly making a run. They put a hurting on Denver last night, who's the number 2 team in the West. And they're really competitive, and it's a deep roster. And earlier this year, they wanted Grayson to make sure he got enough playing time, so they sent him down to the G League for a couple of games. And Grayson Allen went down there in the G League. Like, I want to say, I don't have a computer in front of me. But I remember it was like 28, 26 points in back-to-back games. So for the people there looking at the G League as an option, and I've seen some G League games in person, there's talent out there. But trust me, there's a pretty big gap between the NBA and the G League.
Yeah.
The G League's there for a reason from that standpoint, but I have to admit, if it wasn't for bottling, the college camp that I watched in the NBA, it's lost on me. The money aspect is, I can't relate. I got to listen to you yesterday talk a little bit about Bryce Harper. Wow, I can't agree more with you. And the concept of giving somebody $330 million is mind-boggling to me. And, with the average person, I don't think they can relate to $330 million. So I have a theory on why it was $330 million. It's not the most per year, but what is it? It's the most.
It's the most for now.
Right. And when Alex Rodriguez left Seattle, again, being out here was a very public situation, then Texas signed him to the 10-year, $252 million contract. I had a chance to ask somebody in the Mariners organization their theory on why it had to be 252. What a random number.
Uh-huh.
What a random number. Well, up till that time, the largest contract anybody in a major sport, had ever signed was Kevin Garnett. And he signed for $126 million at the time. But do your math, Chris. But the UVA degree that for 126 doubles is what? It's 252. So you're sitting here. Bryce Harper was going to Philadelphia the whole time in my mind because nobody else was going to give him that amount of money. And you're going $330 million. Where did that number come from? Well, what was the highest on the board? What did the young man from Miami get? Stanton, that was $325, wasn't it?
Yeah, $325 for 13 years. Yes.
Yeah, you're just sitting here, and again, that's why it's hard. It's hard for the average person to relate to somebody making $300 million. But that's why, again, I'm a college basketball fan.
Well, I'll say this about that. The average person also doesn't have elite skills. We're talking about the very tippy top of the iceberg of people who have that kind of skill, and the money's there. If the owners can pay that kind of money, they're not going broke. The owners there must be some well they're pulling from to be able to pay these guys this amount of money, and so I don't have a problem with it from that standpoint. And I'll say this too about this. I read an article right before we came on about the Harper situation and other offers that were out there. And these are, of course, this is a little conjecture, but it feels like confirmed reporting. Deadspin wrote about this about 3 hours ago. And it's really interesting when you hear these numbers. The average annual value of this is $25.4 million, which you just mentioned, that Alex Rodriguez contract. That was back in 2002. Average annual value, $25.2 million. So, I mean, in that sense, that's a lot of time to pass for the value to be roughly the same. And also, so apparently the Dodgers offered 4 years, $185 million, which average annual value blows that away. That's almost double what he's getting from the Phillies, but it's only a 4-year deal. And apparently Harper made it clear he wanted the longevity. He's got a job till he's 39 years old now. And so he could have gone 4 years with the Dodgers, and then at age 30, which is still a pretty good year from a productivity standpoint as a baseball player, though, now in the post-steroid era, 30 might be on the downside of that. But he could have gone back out there again in 3 years, 4 years, and gotten more money for a 4 or 5 year deal, and it could have added up to a lot more than he's making with Philadelphia. But he played the Phillies, from what this Deadspin article said. The Phillies had been intent on, I think it was a 10-year deal, $310 for the entirety of this process, dating back to early November. He really wanted 13 years. And so even though, again, it makes his average annual value go down, he wanted this job security. And he got what he wanted in that sense. So he turned down more money short term for security long term. And, now he gets to play in Philadelphia, where their fans, the media, a little harsher than they are in D.C. I still wonder if the winner in all this is still not Manny Machado, because Machado gets to live in San Diego. There's no pressure, at least right away. Harper's going to have a lot of pressure. Harper has to win. I mean, Philadelphia last year was a contender until around September 1st, and now they've just added the biggest free agent of this year. They're not going to settle for contending in September. They're expecting a World Series now with Bryce Harper. I'm not sure he's going to deliver that. In fact, I'm a Nats fan, and I'm kind of glad to be rid of Bryce Harper. So, congratulations, Phillies. Your problem now. But yeah, so I think Machado probably wins. Actually, I think the big winner in all this, Jerry, Nolan Arenado. Arenado, 8 years, $260. He gets to stay with the team that brought him up, the Colorado Rockies, and no pressure there except to just go out and do what you've been doing all these years for Colorado. So, I guess I would rank the winners of this free agency season that extended into overtime. And Arenado wasn't even a free agent, but he now won't be a free agent. I think the Rockies and Arenado clear winners. Machado, San Diego second, and a distant third would be Harper and the Phillies. So there's my baseball soliloquy here in the middle of a basketball podcast.
Well, the one thing I will mention, and again, he didn't get the hype out here, but the Phillies picked up some other players. They got our shortstop. And I would say that I think our shortstop is the best shortstop in baseball last year. Now, again, he got some All-Star notice and various things, but they think we did the top of their lineup 1 through 4 now, and good luck to them. But again, that's just a lot of money. And for that perspective, Chris, I remember two things in my life when it comes to money in sports. And Walter Payton is the first one I remember. And Walter Payton was the first professional athlete, Chris, to get paid $1 million a year to play sports. And the uproar about paying somebody $1 million a year to play sports. And again, that's in my lifetime, so I'm a little older than you. And the other one, that's even funnier to me, this was somebody I followed even back in high school because I lived in the same place, Curtis Strange. And Curtis Strange was the first golfer to actually earn $1 million in a year. And that's more recent than the Walter Payton thing. Because now you can go out in the golf tournament and win that on a weekend. You can actually win a golf tournament and win $1.5 million for 4 days worth of work. So I guess it's not just baseball. It's kind of all in the way of I don't want to say the dodo, but it's just interesting that you're correct. Somebody's paying these people, so that money is coming from somewhere. But switching back to the basketball, I did want to say one thing that is going to go really unnoticed. How about Notre Dame? Now, they have nothing to show for it. Nothing at all. The only thing they have between them and the Big Ten is this. But Notre Dame, in their last 4 games, played a great game at UVA and lost by 6. But they did lose at home to Wake by 7. They played Virginia Tech to 8 points, and then they went to Florida State and played Seminoles to 7 points. So Mike Bray, who's a very proud man and runs a great program, has been up there forever. You're sitting there, and somebody who's just glancing at the standings going, wow, these guys are 3-12. But that's somebody who wanted to sneak that in. They are the level of play between, you saw them play UVA twice. Mm-hmm. And the people in the second game, I listened to a number of people say, what's wrong with UVA? They didn't blow out Notre Dame. And then they followed it up with they stayed competitive with Virginia Tech. And Blackshear had another lights-out game. And they went down to Florida State, and they were in that game to the very end. So kudos to Mike Ray for he lost his captain right out the gate in the non-conference season, and he's not going to have a whole lot to show for it, but he's definitely got those guys to buy into what's going on there, and the future's going to look a little bit brighter for them.
Well, and then I'll give kudos to Boston College, an upset win over Louisville this week. A Boston College team that is, they're over 500, so credit there, 14-13, 5-10 in the ACC, but nobody's given them any credit this year, and they played tough, and I'll give them credit here, and that's a huge win for a team, especially, and a huge loss for Louisville. They've been reeling, obviously, of late in that sense, and so. We talked a few weeks ago, Jerry, about the bottom six teams, and certainly Notre Dame, Boston College among those bottom six. And did we think any of them could compete with any of those top teams? And I think our consensus was no. We had a lot more to say about it than just that. But I think in the end, as much as we gave everybody credit for what they put out there on the court, we didn't think any of those bottom six, the teams that will play in the ACC tournament on Tuesday here in a couple of weeks, that we didn't think any of those teams would be competitive. And so certainly Notre Dame has been competitive. That Virginia game came down to, you said it was a 6-point game, and that was the final margin. Virginia led by 2 points with 30 seconds to go, had to make free throws to make it a 6-point game. So, Notre Dame almost pulled what would have been a huge upset in JPJ after losing by 27 a month ago. We've seen Boston College then beat Louisville. I'll give Georgia Tech credit, not this week. They got blown out by Virginia, but they did lead Duke, in Durham last month. They played Virginia Tech tough twice, lost by single digits both times. So, they've tried to hold their own. This weekend, Pitt has a chance at Virginia. Not likely, but, you never write anybody off. They're a 20-point underdog, but a chance to make some noise. Wake Forest has a chance to make some noise hosting Syracuse. Wake has won 4 games now. That's 4 more than I give them credit for. I didn't think they'd win a game this year in the ACC, so they got 4. I'll give them credit for that. Miami has played well of late, and they're at Duke, tough situation, obviously 20-point underdogs there, but Miami is nobody to overlook. So, it was maybe 3 weeks ago, Jerry, that we didn't give really any of them a chance, any of those 6 teams a chance to make some noise against those good teams. I think that they've done, they've done what you'd expect ACC teams to do, whether they're the Dukes or Virginias or the bottom teams. You get better as the season goes on. Your guys get used to each other. They when things work out, you play good basketball, you get a chance to win, and they're doing all those things, and they're making themselves at least tough outs here down the stretch.
Well, the one thing, and I hate to ever dwell on the negative side of anything. But, again, I get to all the feed coming out of Louisville. My tie there with my brother and his degree. Louisville released a story this week basically saying why Louisville is still a lot to make the tournament. And you're sitting there, and I go, that's not a good sign when you're having to try to put that out there. But, to get the UVA game, and I'm glad that, you mentioned Scott got to go there with Jerry. You're sitting there when UVA falls down by 10 in the second half. I'm going, okay, UVA's got them right where they want. You're sitting there, and it's tough for me that a D1 basketball team, a major D1 basketball team, as good as UVA's defense is, you're playing at home, and you score 15 points in the second half. Yeah. I'm just, so you combine it. You got the Duke thing, which that was a humbling loss. The Clemson one, which would have been worse than the Duke one. Not even close. I think that the Clemson game, if the shot's not blocked at the buzzer, Chris, will be the highlight film for every coach who's ever trying to tell his kids don't ever give up. If you could possibly give up 8 points in 9 seconds. So So then they come back and they tweak out the Clemson win, and they come out and you're in a situation where they took it to UVA. Again, they're playing at home. They're playing in a game where they have a double-digit lead. And, I mean, you were watching that game, too. At any point were you thinking we might lose this?
Well, so my experience is a little different. I actually had an ESPN3 assignment that day, so I didn't get to watch it live. I didn't get to watch it until Sunday, so I knew the results. So it's interesting for me because I never have to do that. So I knew already that Virginia wins the game, and I'm now just watching it to kind of reconstruct the scene. It's kind of like I'm a detective at a crime scene. I got to figure out how this happened. And what I saw, again, with knowledge of how it's going to go, so I'm not watching it with nerves, I'm watching it more analytically. In the first half, Louisville made a bunch of shots they would normally make. When I saw the stats and saw 10 for 16 from three-point range, I'm thinking in my head before I see it, wow, Virginia was playing terrible defense. They were leaving lots of wide-open shots. And what I saw was Ryan McMahon hit 4 shots, a little 6-foot-tall guy running backwards, banking in one, hitting a couple of shots with hands in his face. And that was pretty much the case in the first half. Second half, same offense, they just didn't make those shots. In fact, they had a couple more open shots. Jordan Nwora missed 2 wide open threes. They only had one the way I rendered it. They had 1 wide open 3. There was a corner 3 early maybe the third 3 they made in the first half was an open corner 3. Bad defense by Virginia. The others were just, hey, if that guy wants to shoot that shot and he makes it, good for him. So second half, I think they may have feasted a bit too much on their threes. Also, though, they shot 33 threes out of 55 shots for the game. That's lazy offense. Virginia's defense is going to give you threes. You've got to work to get better shots than that. They didn't. They just happened to make a bunch of threes first half. Second half didn't. And so, though that said, they only made 2 in the second half. They were back-to-back. Virginia climbed out of the hole. They were down 12 early in the second half, climbed out of the hole, took a 43-41 lead. And on back-to-back possessions, Louisville made threes, just like they did in the first half. They were hand-in-the-face threes, and they both went in. And I'm thinking, even though I knew the results, I'm thinking, if I'm watching this live, wow, that feels like momentum. Now they're back. They missed shots for 10 minutes. They just made 2 in a row. And I would be thinking watching live, here it comes. And so the second shot gave them 47 points. They finished with 52. So, and 2 of those were garbage time. It was literally 62-50 with 50 seconds left, and they scored a basket with everybody already out of the gym. So they had 1 free throw and 1 basket against Virginia's regulars the rest of the way. Hard to figure how that is. They made 2 shots in the paint. They got outscored 38-4 in the paint. That was a pretty thorough beatdown, and I think the only thing that made it was a 12-point final for Virginia. If Louisville doesn't make a bunch of shots that they shouldn't have made, Virginia wins that game by 30 points and only scored 64. That had the feeling of a beatdown that Louisville averted by making a bunch of shots they shouldn't have made otherwise. So that's my long-winded analysis of Louisville, Virginia, I guess. Sorry for that.
Well, now you have a second round of that.
Yes.
And in my mind, the way it's going to play out, I'm going to acknowledge that my 14-4 theory is going to work for pretty much everybody except the winner. I don't see Virginia losing another game in the regular season. And I wouldn't have said that before because I thought Louisville could beat them in Louisville. Yeah. And I thought they would give them a game in JPJ.
Yeah.
I don't see anything. And again, I love what Coach has done there and how he did it on the fly. The only person that inherited a bigger mess than him was Pitt. Not only did Pitt not win a game in the league last year, the whole team won. Basically, the people that didn't graduate transferred out. It was the biggest dumpster fire you're ever going to have. And his situation wasn't quite that bad, but he's done a phenomenal job. But they just can't finish a game. Yeah. They can come out and play as well as anybody in the country for 20 minutes, and then they have trouble after that. It's going to be interesting to see, but I don't see anything that they're going to do differently. So I would think they could come into JPJ and beat UVA on the last game of the regular season.
Yeah, and the Capel Matt comparisons are apt. And the one difference, though, is that Capel goes to Pitt with no expectations. I mean, they're going to give him time. You go to Louisville, the expectations come. I mean, okay, great, you're hired. Go win a championship. That's the expectation at Louisville, even with a depleted roster, even with all the problems that he inherited. I mean, and then of course, then he raises the expectations with a 7-1 start in ACC play, a 21-point win in Chapel Hill over North Carolina, and so. I mean, not only are they, having they're blowing leads, but now, they go from 7-1 to 9-7 in the ACC. It's sort of like the season is a microcosm of the Duke game and the UVA game because, they started so hot, and now the whole season's playing out like that too. Yeah, that's tough for Louisville, and I don't know. Obviously, I guess being a UVA observer and a UVA fan, so putting the fan hat on for a second. Syracuse at Syracuse. Syracuse is a thorn in the side, and even though Virginia has won, I want to say they've won the last couple of games up in the Carrier Dome. It's never easy, that zone defense. And I know the Syracuse team is up and down, and they're way up or they're way down. They've got to win at Duke. They've also lost at home to UConn, which is hard to figure. But when I watch that team play, they're a classic Jim Boeheim team. They got big wings. That to me, that zone defense can be really effective. And then Louisville at home. Louisville's got talent. Yeah, they can't put it together for 40 minutes, but for 30 they can put it pretty well together. So I know I would not want to play Louisville either in the ACC tournament or NCAA tournament just because if at some point, it might not be this year, but at some point they'll put it together. And I would say the same about Syracuse actually. In a tournament situation, having to play that team, they've got some guys who can score. They've got they've got that 2-3 zone, which in a one-game scenario can be frightening to have to play against. So, but that said, yeah, Jerry, the 14-4, we're done with that. We were so adamant back in November. We were even adamant again in January, and that's okay. At least we were confident. We were wrong, but at least we were confident. And I'd rather be confident and assertive than wishy-washy and right, I guess. So that's where we stand with that.
Well, the thing that you have to look at is Roy Williams had to sit back a gift basket after the game in Chapel Hill.
Yeah.
Because Carolina was sleepwalking. They were great one day. They were bad the next day. Louisville comes in there and embarrasses them in their building. And look what UNC's done since then.
Yeah.
Other than a 4-minute lap against UVA,
yeah,
they have played flawlessly. So that's what we can thank the UNC success. We're going to give part of the thanks to that to Louisville because there's not been that many times that somebody's come into their building and just spanked them. And again, what they've done since then, they did have that one lap against UVA. And I feel bad for them. The night that Zion got hurt, everything became about Zion. How about the fact the game that UNC played? Again, they weren't playing against Zion, but I mean, Derek Reddish was still out there, and it was a situation where Carolina's playing awfully good basketball right now. And that leads me to the next segue, if you will, for getting ready for the ACC tournament. Because I know that here's what I did not know. I did not realize. It was 1953, of course, when the league was born. I didn't realize that UVA was not part of the original group. They actually came in a few months.
Yeah.
A few months later. But the unbalanced schedule. It started happening because I was wanting to make sure my notes were correct. I remembered in my head. I accepted Georgia Tech, and that was our ACC. 8 years later, FSU sneaks in, and I'm going, okay. It kind of takes away from the tournament because now we've got this goofy play-in game. We got the 9 versus 8 game, but if that's the worst thing that happen to the greatest basketball tournament ever, I'm okay with that. Then you have this big lull where for 13 years the league stays the same. And then in 2004, it's Miami and Czech. 2005, it's BC. Like, okay, we stepped all that. 2011, it's Syracuse and Pitt. A year later, we get Notre Dame with all the football, and then finally we swapped Maryland for Louisville. And eventually, I say good riddance, but it's a situation for me, Chris. And again, football is second nature to me as a basketball fan. I love ACC football. I love the fact that we had the national champ. And I understood this was all football driven. And on paper, it was supposed to help the basketball as well. And I just don't think it has. And it's going to be tough. And I know you're going to be down there in a couple of weeks, and I'll be watching it from start to finish. And you and I have talked about the fact that we're the junkies in the group. Well, it's ACC basketball. I watch 5 and 6 games a week. I'm just not sure if what it's going to be like on Tuesday and Wednesday. And it's not going to be bad basketball. The way the tickets have been sold forever, I love it. I used to describe it to people as it's like on the floor in Wall Street. You're just sitting there, and as soon as game 1's over, everybody that seems lost, they're holding their tickets over their head, and it's let's make a deal. So now, and again, predominantly Duke and UVA. So we're sitting here as far as fan base. I'm going to follow them all. Those are the two I follow most. Somebody, Chris, is not playing until Thursday night. It could be that they're both not playing until Thursday night. So you're in a situation, if you want to guarantee a seat, I think Friday will be the single greatest day in ACC basketball history. I do. I really think it'll be that kind of a day on Friday. But I'm not sure how it's going to work if your team's not playing until game 10 or game 11. Now, let me hear your thoughts on that.
Well, those fans won't even get there till Thursday. That's the first thing. And I say that, I'll use Virginia as the jumping off point because that's who I cover and who I'll be there for every game, but our focus is UVA. So if the season ended right now, UVA would be the 1 seed. They will play at noon on Thursday. So the UVA fans probably actually will get down to Charlotte on Wednesday evening. They may or may not go to a game before they go to the UVA game on Thursday at noon. If UVA was the 2 seed would play at 7 o'clock on Thursday night. If they were the 3 seed, they play at 9 o'clock on Thursday. My experience is that fans. So if you're a UVA fan and say they're the 3 seed, you don't play until that night. You probably go to watch the 1 seed. It's because that's either Duke or Carolina. If UVA is all the way down to 3, you'll go watch them play Thursday at noon because you're rooting against them because you don't like Duke or UNC. You'll watch it, and then when they win, you'll head out for the afternoon, and you'll come back sometime Thursday night, midway through that first game because it's either going to be Duke or UNC. You hope they lose, and then you're going to watch your team play. I think a lot of fans do that, to be honest. My experience my first ACC tournament was back in 1994. I was still a student at UVA, a fourth-year student at UVA. Now, that was only the 9-team ACC. But, you watched your team, and then you hung around. If there was interesting basketball, you watched it. The day of 4 games, you got tired by the 4th game, and, the gym got tired by the 4th game. The only difference now is that there's 2 days of 4 games because there's a Wednesday 4-game slate and a Thursday 4-game slate. There's 3 on Tuesday. There aren't a lot of people who go to, all 3 games on Tuesday because that's the bottom 6 teams. And, this year, I don't know, looking at it right now, none of those teams, like Wake Forest is a Carolina team, but they don't have a huge fan base in North Carolina, the state of North Carolina. So right now that would be Boston College, Pitt. It would be Miami, Notre Dame. It'd be Wake, Georgia Tech. You're not going to have a lot of interest there. The the top section of the Spectrum Center will be blacked out. But it's going to be good basketball. Even though none of those teams will get NCAA bids, likely not many will get NIT bids because they're not going to be 500 or better teams. When you look at the KenPom rankings, 4 of the 6 are top 100 teams nationally. 4 of the 6 teams would beat most of the other teams who get bids to the tournament, the big tournament. They're good teams. They're just not going to be NCAA tournament teams. Wednesday's an interesting day for me. It has been the last few years. You'll have a couple of teams who play on Tuesday who will compete well on Wednesday, but you're also looking at a lot of NCAA teams. This year, the ACC Tournament, I think we're going to have 9 teams once again get out of the ACC and go to the big dance. That's assuming Clemson, doesn't fall on its face these last couple of weeks, wins a couple more games. But I think we're going to have 9 in there again. And so what that means is there's 8 teams playing on Wednesday. 4 or 5 of them at least are going to be NCAA teams. Then you get to Thursday, all 8 of those teams are NCAA teams. You get to Friday, 3 of those are likely top 5 teams. And then Saturday, of course, you have some heavyweight final. It's going to be UNC Duke, UNC UVA, Duke UVA, Final Four preview type game. I don't know. It's a long week. It's an exhausting week, but it's more. I like more. So, I'm not complaining from that standpoint. It is tiring, but man, you give me basketball, I'm watching it. So even on Tuesday, Scott and I are going down Tuesday. We talked about this the other night at the UVA game with Georgia Tech. UVA doesn't play till Thursday. We're going to go watch some teams who don't get to play after Tuesday play on Tuesday just because they're ACC teams, and they'll play the fight songs and their cheerleaders will be out there, and it'll be there'll be competitive basketball. So that's a long way of me saying I don't mind it. I like more. I like more ACC.
Well, again, as I always have felt that you and I are the exception to the rule. I will be in front of the TV Tuesday, and I will watch all 3 of those games. Because, as you said, a team at the bottom of the ACC is still a pretty good basketball team. And I remember my first year of getting to go to the women's tournament, which is in Greensboro each year. And I saw something on opening day that I thought it was a clever marketing idea because the building otherwise is empty, where the city actually buses in all of their elementary and middle school kids to the building and gets them in the game, gives them colored, the correct color for the school as far as cheering, and you have a building that has a bunch of noise in it. Misguided noise, maybe, but because you're sitting there, and last night was a great example of, as much as I love UW, they had a train wreck game last night, playing down at Cal, and you could hear the announcer talking because there was nobody in the building. Sadly, UW, again, they clinched the Pac-12, but they lost to a team that was 5-22 for the year because there just was zero energy in the building, nothing to get them sparked and fired up. They had my concern on Tuesday, and in defense of the fans, because of the tickets, the way they're handled, because if I'm in Boston and I'm a Boston College fan or a Boston College alumni, I don't know that I can justify flying to Charlotte, and you have to buy a book of tickets, and using one, or maybe 2 or 3, assuming that your team is going to lose, or maybe you get lucky and you win a game. For me, I have no problem with that fan staying at home. It's the same way with Miami. Miami, even when Miami has had good teams, and Larinaga's better years, they've never come to the tournament in growth because that's not who they are. That's not what their fan base is about. So, again, for me and you, as somebody who just loves the game, it's great. I'm just worried about who's going to be in the building that day and the level of energy that's going to go with it.
Boston College fans don't go to games in Chestnut Hill. So they're not going to be in Charlotte. I mean, that's just I can't remember which game it was. I was watching one of their recent home games. There were no fans at their home game. So Wake Forest fans, God love them, they don't go to Lawrence Joel. So, but that said, except when they're playing Duke, and then they leave early because it's over. Basketball in this day and age, just like other sports, it's a made-for-TV event, and fans will be there. I'll say this. There won't be as many fans on Tuesday. There was a big worry the last 2 years, and there was all this hue and cry, especially from the traditional ACC folks. Why are we in Brooklyn? Okay, I love New York, so that's fine. But there was all this concern about there's going to be nobody there on Tuesday. There's going to be nobody there on Wednesday. There were 10,000 people every session because a trick to the little game there is. There's 10 million people in the New York metro area, and not all of them have jobs on Tuesday at noon where they can't just get away and go watch a basketball game. So, whereas in Greensboro, you don't quite have that population base. So, now Charlotte's a bigger city. It's an NBA city. There may be more people there on Tuesday. But from the ACC standpoint, from ESPN standpoint, and I guess the last year of Raycom, they get to broadcast the games too for one more year. It's TV inventory. People, you'll be watching from Washington State. There'll be lots of people watching. And this will take me back now to my childhood. Back then, it didn't start till Friday. Now we're starting on Tuesday because back then we only had 8 teams. But I had this mysterious malady that would show up every Friday, the first or second Friday in March, depending on when the ACC tournament started. I would get sick and couldn't go to school because the ACC tournament started Friday at noon, and guess what, Mom? I don't feel good today. I've got to watch basketball. Luckily, I was a good enough student that Mom would wink, wink, nod, nod. Yeah, you're sick. You can go. There was one year, though, that the school spelling bee happened to be on that Friday, and, God forbid, why did they schedule the spelling bee that day? I had to go to school. UVA was the number 1 seed. They played at noon, and the spelling bee went on during that. So luckily, I had a teacher come up to me afterwards. I won a spelling bee, and the teacher comes up and says, "Oh, good, you won a spelling bee, and UVA won, so good day for you." The only time I had to go to school in elementary school on the ACC tournament Friday. Now I'd have to come down with I don't know. I have to come down with mono because I'd have to miss a whole week of school to be able to watch the ACC tournament. But yeah, people. There are going to be TVs on in offices. There are going to be TVs on people going to lunch, long lunches, especially if UVA is playing at noon on Thursday or whoever, wherever. If it's Carolina or Duke, lots of Duke and Carolina fans will be taking a long lunch break on Thursday at noon to watch their team play. But gosh, it's that time of year. We'll be doing the same thing the following week. The best 2 days of the NCAA tournament are the Thursday and Friday when where our whole country comes to a standstill. Those games don't get greatly attended either, but we're all watching on TV. So as long as we're watching, as long as we care, that's all the powers that be care about. And that said, the tickets on Friday night, Jerry, get them before Friday night because when Duke, UNC, and UVA are all in that gym for one session, I can't wait to see what the value of those tickets are because it's going to be through the roof to see 3 top 5 teams play.
Well, that's what brought when I got the phone call, somebody again trying to do something nice for their husband, saying, "Hey, how do I do that?" And I said, "Well, you have a couple of problems because the average person hasn't attended the tournament, so they don't know. The same way that I listen to a boatload of stuff about going to Maui and how athletes run. The ACC tournament sells their tickets in a book. So, and I'm sitting there, and somebody's like, "Hey, well, I'm not worried about Thursday. I want to be there for Friday." I'm going, that's not the way you want to do it. You want to have tickets in hand to where that you can go and see them on Thursday and have a ticket on Friday and then sell your way out of the other ticket. You don't want to do it in reverse.
Yeah.
Because I do believe that ticket in Charlotte, which is an NBA city, it's going to be, it's not going to be like it was for Duke, Carolina, and Cameron because of the supply and demand. There'll be more tickets available But yeah, I would not want to be wandering the streets in Charlotte trying to buy a ticket at the last minute for that doubleheader on Friday.
Yeah, I'll go. I'll say right now, I just, as you're talking there, it made me think, look at StubHub and see what they're going for right now. I'm seeing all session tickets on StubHub, which would be the whole book. That includes Tuesday all the way to the championship, $2.99 each. Now that's for 14 games. I mean, so that's $20 a ticket. And you're probably sitting in the top, but whatever. They are available. Now I'm also seeing individual session tickets out there as low as $6 each, and that's for Tuesday. But so yeah, this is a great time for me to give the advice because I've covered a lot of tournaments, but I also went to a few as a fan back before I was a full-time sports writer. And yeah, you know, if you're in Charlotte, or you can get to Charlotte, if you know you're going to be in Charlotte anyway, get yourself a hotel room and go hang out. Hang out around. Now I don't know what the time is on Tuesday. It looks like 12 o'clock and then a 7 and 9 session. So about 2:30 on Tuesday. There are going to be some fans leaving whose team just lost, and they want to go home. And so you can get your tickets from those folks. You can get the whole book from those folks. If you're out there about 11:30 Tuesday night, same kind of thing. There will, in fact, be two groups of fans leaving, and so you might be able to get your tickets from those folks. So you can get them. That's the old-fashioned way. You just buy them from people whose teams lost. You can get them for a pretty good price too, because those fans, especially on impulse, they're really angry their team lost. And they're going home. StubHub or the other ticket resellers are also friendly in that sense. I have gone. I mean, this is not ACC Tournament, but you know, a couple years ago, my wife and I are big Washington Nationals fans. I mentioned that earlier about talking about Bryce Harper. And Game 5 of the NLDS, Nats at home against the Dodgers. We wake up that morning. It's going to be in D.C. My wife and I wake up that morning, and she actually says to me, "Hey, Chris, I just looked on StubHub, and we can get 2 tickets in the left field bleachers for about $50 each. Do you want to go?" And before I could say yes, we were already in the car because, you know. And so if you're willing to look a lot, frequently, check that app a lot of times. You know, yeah, you can get tickets. But yeah, if you're right, Jerry. If you wait until if you want to be there Friday. And you wait until Thursday after UVA, Duke, and UNC have already won. No, that is not the time to do it. Those tickets are going to be Super Bowl ticket prices because it's one ticket for both games because it's one session. So yeah, don't do that. Get them now.
If you're gonna, one thing to add what you said, and I want anybody who could possibly experience it to experience it. I do believe it's the next level of it. The key is to catch the people coming out of the building before the scalpers get to them first.
Yeah.
Because they're going to sell those tickets to you for face value.
Yes.
Okay. Where if you wait and let somebody who's out there trying to make money buy them, they're gonna turn around and charge you for them. So, but yeah, getting to see that the first time. Well, I knew growing up, I followed the tournament. I used to think Friday sessions in school, but I couldn't afford to go to the tournament. And once I had a chance to go, I was going, "Wow, this is awesome! This is awesome! I want anybody who could possibly go to go." And I do believe that Friday night will be historic. And in that situation, if you can get in that building, get in that building. But just, you know, unless you're wealthy, don't wait until Friday morning to try to get in that building. I think you might be in a bad spot. And on that note, I got one more parallel for you. We'll see if you got a thought on this. All year long, I've mentioned that if Duke wins the national championship, anybody who's a non-Duke fan will say, "What do you expect when you have 3 of the 5 top players in the country?" My parallel is this. I reduced the number of teams that I think that can realistically win the national championship down to 5. Okay? 3 of those 5 are ACC schools. So now, there's your parallel. Well, if the ACC wins the national championship, the non-ACC fans are going to go, "Well, what did you expect? They had 3 of the best 5 teams in the country." Is that going to take anything away from it for you as far as I know you won't have the same joy if it's Carolina winning it as if it is Virginia. But I've never seen a season, I guess you got to go all the way back to the mid-'80s when the Big East hit 3 teams to the Final Four. I think this is very realistic that it could be, unless there's just a bad match at some point. They can't play against each other until the regional final.
Uh-huh.
But if those 3 schools go to different regions, I'm not sure there's that many teams that could beat them. I don't know what your thought is on that.
Yeah, Duke at full strength with Zion is the best team in the country. I know Virginia is getting the love right now as the number 1 overall team, at least from the metric standpoint. But Duke with Zion is the best team in the country. Now, that said, if he's not back until the NCAA tournament, the integration of him back in the regular lineup could be problematic. But I think they get to the first weekend, and then they're back to full strength again. And they've lost at full strength once this year. They lost to Gonzaga full strength once, so that's they've lost once at full capacity. So there is a margin for error. It's not very they're going to beat most teams at full strength. Carolina has, as you pointed out, since the Louisville loss, they've been great. Virginia's beaten everybody but Duke. So So yeah, it's there's ways to beat them, but yeah, matchup wise, I look more at this Virginia team, obviously because I watch them all the time and I've watched them for 30 some years, every game they play. Last year's team was a number 1 overall national seed, but they had weaknesses. They were only 30th in the country offensively in terms of offensive efficiency. This year, they're top 5. They're still as good a defensively team as they were before. I like their rotation at 8 with more minutes for Huff at the center. So, this year's Virginia team, yes, most people don't pay attention like we do every game, every day from November 1st on. Most of the country won't start paying attention until the bids are announced on Selection Sunday. And when they see Virginia number 1 seed, they're going to say, oh, isn't that the team that lost to UMBC last year? Well, yeah, they're wearing the same uniforms, but it's not the same team. It won't be the same Duke team for lots of reasons, including that it's different guys. But this Duke team, last year's Duke team, one and dones. This year's Duke team, way better, way better. I love this Duke team from that standpoint. And this year's Carolina team, the Carolina last year was not the team that had for 3 years gone to Final Fours. I don't know how this Carolina team matches up to those Final Four teams. They don't have the experience at guard, but Kobe White's pretty talented for a freshman point guard. They still got Luke May. He's the glue from those teams to this team. Nasir Little can be scary if he starts playing at a consistent level like we expect him to play. Have expected him to play all season long. If he starts playing at that level, boy, they haven't hit their ceiling yet. And so yeah. I keep being long-winded here today, Jerry, but yeah, if there is a year for the ACC to have 3 in the Final Four, this would be the year because they all have their flaws. The Duke team can't shoot the 3 as well as some previous Duke teams, certainly. The Carolina team doesn't have the inside power as those Carolina Final Four teams from a few years ago vintage had. This Virginia team still can go through spurts of not scoring points, and that can be in their low possession pace can be problematic in a one and done scenario. But yes, they all have flaws, but I think the ceilings of the Duke and Virginia teams are as high as they've ever been for those teams. I think Carolina has a Final Four ceiling. So yeah, I think this could be a special year for for the ACC and for those three schools. I think if you're a fan of any of those 3 schools, if your team doesn't make the Final Four, you're disappointed. So that might be the easiest way to say it.
Well, earlier in the year, people were talking about, hey, there could be 6, there could be 8, or there could be 10. I really do believe that if I was wagering, I would say, give me my 5, and you can have the field. And besides the 3 ACC schools, the other two that I'm looking at. And again, I watch as much Gonzaga basketball as you watch UVA basketball. Mm-hmm. And again, it's out here late at night. They're the other local team. And these guys are talented. And again, they did get tripped up. At Tennessee, it was a 3 at the buzzer that beat them. And, of course, they didn't play well at UNC. But these guys are as deep as I've ever seen them. And they have the one lottery pick as well. And the names are not as much household names, you know, where Norvell and Perkins and Clark are concerned and Kispert. But you're in a situation where I don't know who Hawkinera is he gets the ball on. He's the one that should be the lottery pick. So, and Kentucky has come around and again, as I said to anybody that would listen after the Duke game, I said, they're not that bad. Just give them time. So, those are the 5 teams that I could see cutting down the net. Do you have anybody left in your mindset that you think could be there as well?
I would throw.
Cut them down.
I would throw Michigan and Michigan State in there, and then I would cut it off. The teams you mentioned plus Michigan State. Michigan State is a very balanced team. They're a top 10 team offensively and defensively. Michigan, not quite as balanced. They're more like Virginia's team of last year. They're great defensively. They're good offensively. They're pretty good offensively, but not great offensively. But when you look, I'm looking at just the Ken Pom rankings offensively, defensively. The cutoff for the last 6 national champions is number 11. The last 6 national champions have been top 11, both offense and defense. So what that tells you is that, you know, if you're a great offensive team but you're not great defensively, or vice versa, like Virginia last year, they were great defensively but not great offensively, those teams don't have the staying power. Well, you look at the teams you just mentioned, Virginia's 4th offensively in Ken Pom, 2nd defensively. Duke is 2nd offensively, 5th defensively. Michigan State 5th offensively, 8th defensively. Carolina has a drop-off, and so does Kentucky. Just a slight one. I said 11 is the cutoff number. Carolina's 7th offensively, 13th defensively. Got to get a little better, so a smidge better. Kentucky's 12th offensively, so a smidge better, 9th defensively. The one team that stands out that, you know, has just a slight, issue is Gonzaga. 1st offensively, and actually 1st by far, because they averaged 127.8 points per 100 possessions. To be 1st in the country. 2nd in the country is Duke, 122.3. So they score 5 points more over 100 possessions than Duke, the 2nd best team. But Gonzaga's 24th defensively. They're a step back, a good step back from the rest of that pack. But that said, so I brought all that up to say that Michigan State, from the analytics standpoint, you got to put them in the equation just because, they play good schedules. The Big Ten's rugged. And they're both, 5th and 8th, and then actually Michigan's 28th offensively, 3rd defensively. So they're sort of in the same boat as Gonzaga. They do the defensive thing great. They don't do the offensive thing as great, whereas Gonzaga's great offensively, not quite as good defensively. So, but I'm throwing them in there because they are so good at what they do, and at the one good thing they really do. They're so good at that. Those 7 teams, and then I think after those 7. It's a huge drop-off. Tennessee would be my 8th team, and the way they've played lately, no, they're not elite. They're good. They're Sweet 16. They might be Elite 8 good. They're not Final 4 good, in my opinion. And I think from there on, it really drops off after those top 7.
Yeah, I want to add one Gonzaga note here. Chris, you're talking about their scoring defense. Now, on January 12th, so that's 7 weeks ago, they gave up 83 points. At San Francisco. That's a tournament team. San Francisco's got a good team this year. But since that game, nobody has hit the 71 against them. And now, early on in the non-conference, they played a brutal because they didn't have a schedule. And they played a tough non-conference schedule. And you're now 7 weeks since the last time somebody scored 70 points on them. So it's kind of funny from that standpoint. And again, it'll be interesting. And again, as I said about a month ago, if Duke wins a national championship, that's awesome. But If Virginia or Gonzaga could do it, it's program changing. And I think that they're both in a situation to where it can be done. And again, I think that, and you've mentioned it a number of times all season long, Kyle Guy was the right path with the Maryland-Baltimore County game. He didn't run from it. He ran to it. These guys, you had the wake-up call a few years back where the Wilmington game, and you had to go, oh, this could happen and this could happen. There's nothing like that's going to happen. First of all, they're too deep. Secondly, it's already happened. So I would, as much as it would be cool to say, hey, Duke won a national championship, if Virginia or Gonzaga, if Tony Bennett or Mark Few could win their first, I think it will elevate their program to another level. And the one thing they both have in common, and I don't know if the average fan realizes, UVA has 5 foreign-born players. Now, I don't know how often that comes up in conversation from a recruiting standpoint. Gonzaga does the same thing. They bring people in from all over the world. And, I mean, you're obviously there day to day. How often does somebody realize that 5 of the people playing at basketball for UVA are from various parts of the world?
I don't know that anybody even gives it any thought because basketball recruiting is so different than football recruiting. As soon as you start talking about that, it made me think, football recruiting, the first thing you say is, oh, we got to recruit our state, we got to recruit Virginia or Texas, wherever we're located. We got to recruit our high schools. Great. Basketball, you recruit the world. I mean, that not maybe not literally the world, but yeah, maybe you do recruit the world because you only have 13 scholarships to give out, whereas football you get 85. So and you can't just recruit your state because basketball and so it's different in that standpoint. And Tony finds guys. He doesn't get. I mean, this is not a knock on the Kentuckys and Dukes who get the great and Carolina to a lesser extent who get the top recruits every year. Because Tony gets good recruits. I'm not saying he doesn't get top recruits, but he finds guys who fit his system, and it might be a little harder for him to find guys to fit his system. Because you've got to give up yourself a little bit. You can't, you're not going to come right in and start for him and score 30 points a game ever for him. You're not going to run up and down the floor and shoot threes wildly and dunk the ball all the time. You're going to play defense. You're going to have to run a lot. You're going to have to be hard-nosed. And you also got to get into UVA and be a student for 4 or 5 years. You're not going to leave after a year and that kind of thing. So he's got to work a little harder to find guys, but that said, he's got guys. I mean, Jack Salt from New Zealand wasn't rated by recruiting services. Kihei Clark wasn't rated by any recruiting service. He's from California. He had one offer from Cal Davis. He was a 3-star recruit and barely a 3-star recruit who had one minor offer, and he's played 30 minutes a game for Tony as a 5'9" point guard. So, so he's got to be a little different in that sense, and what he does is special. He wins with guys that most coaches wouldn't put the assemblage of talent together and be able to win 30 games a year with his guys, and he wins with them and sends a few of them to the NBA, which is even icing on the cake. So, I mean, he fits. Me as a UVA alum, I love what he does because he gets guys who are going to go to school for 4 or 5 years, who are going to graduate. Some of them are going to have graduate degrees, also play great basketball. I love it. If he ever wins a championship, great. If he doesn't, and all we do is win 30 games a year every year, I'll take that because he's doing it the right way and it's something sustainable. It's not going to be predicated upon the NBA's rules regarding eligibility. He's not going to worry about that. He's going to win games, whatever the NBA's rules are, and he's doing it at a place that appreciates the way he does it, and as a result, I appreciate the way he does it.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't have said it any better myself. In my mind, it's even harder to find. What do you have to be able to sell as far as your program goes?
Yeah.
To get somebody to come from halfway around the world to play basketball for you. I think that it's a situation to where the rest of the world is caught up with. Maybe not 100%, but there's a lot of quality basketball being played all over the world now. We opened the podcast talking about that. Yeah. And the fact that Tony can go out and I don't even know how you get someone on the map from, I thought it was a fascinating fact, and you're sitting there. I didn't realize until ESPN was doing a little map collect thing with where the UVA kids are from. And I was just sitting there, how cool is that? Yeah. With the bonds, the bonds that are getting created, the locker room, the conversations. It's a great thing. And again, where both Tony is concerned and Mark Few, okay, I want to clarify, I don't need either one of them to win a national championship to be proud of what they do. Yeah. I'm already proud of what they do. So it's not like as a fan I'm going, man, all that's missing is this national championship. But you're sitting there saying, when good guys come out and do something the right way, wouldn't it be cool if they ended up getting the ultimate reward? And I will say this, though, I do hope that UVA gets to Minneapolis, because I'm just tired of Tony's somebody I have a ton of respect for. I have ever since Dad talked him into coming out to Wazoo, which is a really awkward place to have to coach basketball. I just good things should happen to good people. He runs a phenomenal program, and I don't think there'll be anybody from a neutral fan standpoint that wouldn't be cheering for Tony Bennett and his team to have success come the end of the year. And whether they get to cut the nets down or not, as you said, if you can show up, run a spotless program, do it the right way, get 30 W's, I don't know that you have to have the ring to make it all work.
I wish it was that way, Jerry, but there are plenty of detractors out there, and I get it. Like if you're a casual basketball fan, you want to see what you see in the NBA, and I also like NBA games. Boy, there was a Bucks game the other night, 141-140. That was fun to watch. It's different than watching a UVA game, but it's fun to watch too. But there's plenty of fans out there who don't get that. The two Duke UVA games this year, UVA lost both those games. The one was 72-70, the other was 81-71. Possessions were roughly 60-61 possessions each game. Fans think that you're supposed to run up and down the court and shoot threes and dunk and everything else, and the UVA teams don't let you do that. If you beat them, you've got to play 1950s basketball to beat them. And there are plenty of people who don't like that. They think they don't like it. They only watch for the highlights, the dunks, the three-pointers, the block shots in the fifth row. And so, and I understand that, and I get that. So there are actually plenty of people who, if UVA's in the Final Four, and they're say the Final Four is UVA, Duke, Gonzaga, because Gonzaga plays a pretty fast pace too. Maybe Carolina. The other three teams all play fast pace. They've all got guys who will throw alley-oop dunks, and I'm not saying I don't like their basketball. They play good fundamental basketball too. That's why they'd be there. But they play a flashier style of basketball too. And then you've got UVA grinding it out. I mean, we know if you love UVA basketball, you love the grind. You love the 30-second possessions. You love the shot clock violations. You love the hard hedge. You love the post double. You love the continuity motion offense. All this stuff. You love all this intricacy stuff. But the average fan likes the dunk. They like the three. They like the alley-oop pass. And so if those four teams are in the Final Four, UVA is the fourth favorite among the casual fans. And it's not even close. So you and I, though, Jerry, because we're the junkies, you go to Las Vegas to watch women's basketball. We're the hardcore. I'm watching Tuesday ACC Tournament basketball minute for minute. We appreciate what UVA does, but yeah, the casual fans, they don't care. They want to see 101 to 100 final score. So, and they're not going to get that with UVA. So yeah, we're not the favorites.
It's a unique congratulations, because I still laugh every time somebody calls somebody the best stuff in the country. And the one thing, I understand what you're saying there. Here's the thing, for the flip side of it for me, where Gonzaga is concerned. Okay? I want to read something to you real quick. UNC scored 90. Duke scored 87. Creighton scored 92. And San Francisco scored 83. Okay? Because they've had 4 games this year where somebody got past 75. It's not as if they're playing run-em-gun-em NBA basketball. But the average person can only process so much information. They can only see so much game film. And that's why I always get a kick out of every time somebody says, well, so-and-so, I am a junkie, but I can only watch so much of it. But yeah, Gonzaga, the mindset is their scoring defense is not what the other teams are, but it's not as if they're not playing defense. And only 4 teams have gotten past 75 in the 75-80 range, and 2 of them were road games, and the other 2 were UNC and Duke. And again, it's the same way Virginia. The statement is, oh well, they played too slow for me. If somebody's taking a shot, Gonzaga is going to go in the other direction. Well, they're just all offense. They're not playing defense.
To be fair, okay, since they played San Francisco, only 4 of their games have been against top 100 teams. So that's why we don't think about Gonzaga from December, whenever, because their last game against a power team would have been probably the Carolina game. And this is what we do with Gonzaga. We don't think of they play a tough schedule in November, December, because they have to, because the West Coast Conference is there's a couple good teams there. It's not that good, but we don't have to worry about Gonzaga because we know they're going to be 30-2 or whatever it's going to be when they get to the NCAA tournament, and they're going to be good. But we don't watch them play those West Coast Conference games because frankly there's not a lot to watch. But that's okay. I'm not casting aspersions. I'm not saying they're a bad defensive team. I'm saying they're not an elite defensive team. They're 24th in the country in adjusted defensive efficiency. There's 253 teams. So 24th isn't bad. It's just not top 11. So, yeah.
It's funny from a standpoint of, you're correct, and that's why he has to load up you're kind of stuck with the conference that you're in. Some schools have tough conferences when you're in a mid-major. But he has to load up top and get to a point where he can get it tested because there's some decent teams that they're playing, and it's funny. Again, I'll be anxious to see how many in that conference get bid, because I think there's a chance that it'll either be 3 or 4. So it's not like you're, the MAC where it's your tournament winner and possibly somebody else, but what hurts these other teams that are on the bubble is how bad Gonzaga beats them. I mean, you're in a situation where you're talking about, hey, what's a good win, what's a bad loss? And they played a BYU the other night, which is on the bubble from a set standpoint, and basically it was senior night for them, and we scored 102 points, gave up 68. So from BYU standpoint, and when you're competing for a spot, say, against Clemson, they go, oh, wow, here's this game, and they lost by 34 points to Gonzaga. I don't know. You're looking at the way that Clemson lost the game at NC State. And it's so hard to take them and line them up. And I think comparing anybody's defense to UVA's, it's kind of neat. Because they play a whole other level of defense.
Well, and everybody plays different. It's just that it can be hard to get an appreciation for a team like Gonzaga because, again, we don't see them play St. Mary's, certainly. But outside of St. Mary's, we've heard of BYU. They're ranked 77th right now in the net, so I don't know that they're even a fringe team right now as far as the NCAA tournament is concerned. But St. Mary's is certainly has a strong resume for an NCAA bid. But that all said, they're going to be there, and they're going to be fine, and they're going to score a lot of points, and they'll score a lot per possession anyway, because that's what they're the efficiency-wise. They're far and above the efficiency level of anybody else in college basketball offensively, and it'll be fine. Looking forward to seeing God, if that Final Four I just laid out a couple minutes ago was the Final Four, Duke, UVA, Gonzaga, North Carolina, and I just threw those out there because I'm thinking of fast teams, fast tempo teams, there'd be worse Final Fours. So that would be a fun one to watch. But hey, that's the fun thing. It's March 1st. We're talking about March Madness now, and so we have some games this weekend ACC wise. We have ACC tournament coming up, an NCAA tournament coming up, and we've been playing basketball since November to talk about March. We're now in March. This is a good thing. We're an hour and a half in, Jerry, so I think it's probably time to wrap up. I think you've got some stuff to do this afternoon. Any last thoughts as we wrap up our podcast today?
I do have two quick ones, Chris. I'm only searching for, again, I'm adamant. My cause is the fact that I dislike the fact that the women's game is treated as such a ugly stepsister by comparison to the men's game. So I'm only searching out feel-good stories from the ladies' side. I got two quick ones for you. Monique Curry played at Duke. Graduated from down there. The team went to 3 Final Fours while she was there. She was the leader on 2 of them. One of them she was first for part of the season. She ended up with a 13-year WNBA career. She just announced that she's retiring, and she's taking a spot with the input design people out at Nike. She's going to be moving to Portland, so kudos on her continuing her passion for the game. And here's a tough story here. This one impressed me. Joey Taylor, Chris, is the women's coach at the University of Georgia. And I probably tell people that my wife's tough enough that when she had my 4th child, she finished the work shift at 11:30 in a hospital when she was a nurse, and she went 2 doors down and had a baby a half hour late. I always thought that was pretty tough. I think that Joni Taylor took it to another level. She coached the UGA basketball game, and then within hours after the basketball game, went to the hospital, had her child, and then spent the day at the hospital, came back, put the dress back on, and coached the next game the following day. And I just think anybody out there that either is a woman who's had a child or a man who is married and has children could appreciate the level of commitment that Joey Taylor put out for her team trying to be there. And that's one of those things where you can look at that and say, that's incredible, that's dedication, et cetera, or you could say, that's kind of nuts. But that was a feel-good story for me with both of those young ladies, with Miss Curry and what Joni Taylor did at Georgia. I thought that was kind of outstanding.
Yeah, I'd heard the story about the Georgia coach, and we're 2 guys talking about this. Kudos, because I can't imagine any of that. So that's just amazing, amazing dedication during the season to be able to do that. And nobody would have said a thing if she had taken 6 weeks off, 12 weeks off, whatever the case, and she's back right away. So good for her that she did that. Well, Jerry, thank you for another great podcast on Friday. We got folks ready for March. I'm ready for March now. I want to go play some basketball right now myself. So for Jerry Carter, I'm Chris Graham signing off. Have a great weekend, everybody.